being set free, and how it's possible to go from a life of bondage to a life of freedom. When we think about slavery today, no matter what type of slavery we're talking about, whether it's bonded labor, forced labor, child labor, human trafficking, whatever it is, it's something that we say that's not right. And everything within us says that is not okay, we need to stand up against that. When I think about slavery, this quote really stands out to my mind from endslaverynow.org. It says there are an estimated 20.9 million people trapped in some form of slavery today. It's sometimes called modern-day slavery and sometimes human trafficking. At all times, it is slavery at its core. That's a lot of people, 20.9 million people, and that's just right now alive today. But when we think about slavery through all of time and the movement to free people from slavery, I think of this individual right here. Anybody know who that is? Harriet Tubman. Oh, good, there's some other history people out there. So Harriet Tubman, she was born into slavery herself, but she became one of the most well-known, probably the most well-known conductors on the Underground Railroad. And in 10 years, she takes 19 trips back to the South, freeing over 300 people from slavery. Even on one trip, she frees her own parents, who at that point were 70 years old. That was quite the journey to make and get them back up north. And in all of those trips, she would say that she had never lost a single passenger on all of those trips. Pretty amazing, the story of her life. A quote that she shared here says, "Now I've been free. I know what a dreadful condition slavery is. I have seen hundreds of escaped slaves, but I never saw one who was willing to go back and be a slave." Really amazing to think about that. Once we're set free, we don't want to go back to it, do we? Something she also said here is, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." When I read that, I was like, wow, that is so powerful. It's so true that we could be enslaved. Is it possible that we could be enslaved and not even recognize it? That statement is saying that it is. It's possible that we could be enslaved to something without even realizing it. And I would like to share that I think there's possibility that there's people around us who are living in slavery, maybe even some of us, and we don't even realize it. So let's take a look at that today. That number, the possibility that we could be living in slavery and not notice it, tells me that the number of slaves in the world today is greater than 20.9 million people. In fact, I would even guess to say maybe some of us in this room are enslaved in some way or another. But let's take a look at what that might look like. Have you ever struggled with thoughts such as these? I'm worthless. It's hopeless. I'll never be enough. I'm not attractive. I'm not smart. Nobody likes me. I'm a failure. I'm no good. I'll never measure up. I'm sure that at some point or another, we've all had these thoughts going through our minds, right? And we don't want to dwell on that, but why do we have these thoughts in the first place? We all have this feeling inside, this desire to be a part of something, to belong somewhere, right? To be liked and appreciated by people around us. And this is so true because it's a basic human need. If we think about our basic needs as human beings, we can take a look at what some of those might be. What about water? Water makes up about 60% of our body, right? So that's definitely a need that we have. Oxygen, pretty important, right? Try and stop getting that, and a few minutes and we'll be out, right? Oxygen's pretty important. Food and nutrients. We can go longer with this than the other two, but still, it's something that our bodies need. It needs nutrients. The cells need nutrients in order to survive. But there's something else that's a basic human need, and that is love. Now, what's interesting about this, as we said, we're all looking for a place to belong. We're looking for a place to fit in, a place where we're liked and appreciated. We're looking for acceptance. So really, we're looking for love, aren't we? That kind of sums up all of that. But when we take a look at this list of basic human needs, what's really interesting is when you look at them, we call them needs, right? And a need implies that it's something we can't produce in and of ourselves, right? We have to get it from an outside source. Now, can we get water from within the human race? Like, can somebody else be my supply of water? No, right? That wouldn't work very well. What about oxygen? If you just get enough human beings together, can they create enough oxygen for themselves? No, that doesn't work either. What about food and nutrients? A friend could go to the store and get food for me, but that person can't be my source of food and nutrients. But somehow when it comes to love, we tend to think it's a different story. We say, wait a minute, I think that can come from within the human race. But the very fact that it's a need is just like the other three. It has to come from outside of ourselves. But what's interesting is that we don't like to think of it that way. And so we see ourselves going around and looking for love in all the wrong places, as it might be said. We're looking for a place to belong. We're looking for love, and it seems like nobody else can satisfy that, right? And we go through relationship after relationship. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be whatever type of relationship, but somehow there's still that void. And so we try to fit in. We say, well, maybe it's just because I'm not just exactly like them. I just need to be different so they'll accept me. I love how Dave Ramsey put it here. He said, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. It's so true, isn't it? We look for, okay, what's the latest technology? I've got to have that, maybe then I'll fit in. Or the latest car, or the latest fashion. I've got to have this sort of style in order for these people to accept me. But what are we doing? We are setting ourselves up to be slaves of other people, aren't we? We're being enslaved by what they think about life. Wow, that's interesting. Or we think about this right here, and we become slaves to the almighty dollar, as it were. I'm a piece of paper and I control your entire life. It's true, it can happen, can't it? What's interesting is that we become slaves to what we think other people think about us. They might not even be thinking those things that we think they're thinking, if that makes any sense. But we become slaves to what other people might be thinking. And the unhappiest people in the world are those who care the most about what other people think. So is it possible that we can be free of this? That we can be free to be ourselves and not have to be enslaved by the world around us? We want liberty. And if we think about it, I think about this man here, Patrick Henry. You can't tell I like history. He said here at the end, give me liberty or give me death. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? We want freedom. He wanted freedom so bad that he said, if I can't have freedom, I'd rather not exist, right? So that's pretty amazing. We want freedom. We want liberty. So how is that possible? Is there a way we can get our love filled up by a source that's outside of the human race? I would like to suggest that there is. And here in the Declaration of Independence, it actually points us to where that love, that liberty, that freedom can come from. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, there's that freedom, and pursuit of happiness. Wait a second. So the Declaration of Independence just said that the Creator is the only one who can give us life, liberty, and freedom to pursue true happiness. And they got it right. They hit the nail on the head with that statement right there. You see, there is a God who wants us to go from bondage to freedom. He does not want us to be enslaved by the world around us, by what other people might think. He wants us to be free to live the life that He intended us to live. And it's pretty amazing when I think about Christ and the relationship He has with the world. Thinking back to Harriet Tubman, right? She made all these trips down there, and really 300 people amongst all of the slaves, that was really not a lot, if you think about it. But here Jesus, in one trip south, as it were, He makes it possible for every single individual on planet Earth to be set free. That's powerful to me, in one trip. He was born into the same conditions that we're enslaved in. Just like she came from slavery herself, He knows what it's like to be living on this planet and be going through these experiences that we're going through in life. And at the bottom, just like she said, He's able to say He has never lost a single person who wanted to be set free. Amazing. That's somebody that I could trust to be my conductor on this railroad, right? I love how 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is what? liberty. God is the one who wants to give us freedom, freedom from the things that bind us. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be how free? Free indeed. God wants us to be free indeed. He doesn't want us to be in bondage to the things that we are enslaved by. And I love how the most free place you can be is the place where you know you are unconditionally loved. I could be an absolute goof right there with my brother because I know I am unconditionally loved in that space, right? He's not going to think, oh, you're being ridiculous, because he's going to do it too. Jeremiah 31 verse 3 says, "The Lord has appeared of old to me, saying, yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore with loving kindness I have drawn you." So we could take this line and say, from eternity past to eternity future, that's what God's love toward us is like. Never ending in any direction. No matter where we turn, he is still in love with us, as it were. He loves us so much. And what's amazing is that he doesn't just love us, but he, by his very nature, he is love. And it talks about that in 1 John. It says, "He who does not love does not know God, for God is love." Wow. If God is love, we could take it and put this equation right here and say that that very thing we're looking for, that's where it is, right there. That's what we're looking for. That's the answer to this quest of our lives. So knowing this, that God is really the only true source of love. We can't look within the human race to provide that need for human life, right? We have to look outside of ourselves. And God says, I want to be that source of love for your life. I want to be that source. You know, I've given you air, I've given you water, I've given you nutrients, but I want to fill that love spot in your life as well. And so by choosing God as our source of love, we can be set free from being enslaved to what other people think, what other people say. We don't have to try to fit in anywhere when we know we are accepted and loved entirely by someone. And so I want to choose to be set free. How about you guys? Awesome. Thank you so much.